There are currently lots of tactics out there for increasing diversity at senior levels, from targets and quotas to networks and mentoring, just to name a few. Now, it's clear from our research that some of these genuinely have an impact on increasing diversity at the top, while others really don't. So I thought it would be helpful to have a quick run through of some of the tactics that work in increasing diversity at senior levels, as well as some of those that, frankly, they're just bunkum. So let's start with a few examples of what really doesn't work. Firstly, quotas. Quotas in the countries, including the UK at the moment, are illegal, while in other countries it's illegal not to have and to hit quotas. One of the most common examples of this are the gender quotas in Norway of having women occupy at least 40% of board positions. Now, if you take a look at the research into the impact of these quotas in Norway, it becomes very apparent very quickly that the impact is somewhat superficial. Now, in some sectors in Norway, the compliance rate is as low as 18%, whilst in other organisations, they've simply listed themselves privately to avoid having to comply with the legislation. It's also created a group of women who have multiple board places known as the golden skirts, which in essence has led to benefits for the few rather than the many. In fact, one woman recently had as many as 185 board positions in Norway. Targets are not much better. It's important to remember that targets are simply a measure. They are not in and of themselves a strategy to create better diversity at the top. They can also have really negative repercussions, such as people assuming that when a minority employee is promoted, they're promoted because of the target rather than because of their capability. And with regard to the introduction of UK tiebreaker legislation, my personal view is, at best, it might have a marginal impact on recruiting into junior roles, marginal, but it won't have any impact on diversity at senior levels. When was the last time you were recruiting for a senior position and saw two identically matched candidates? And even if you had that situation, it completely negates the impact of human instinct. In a high-risk situation such as recruiting at senior levels, we will always go with what feels more safe or more comfortable. And what makes us feel safe and comfortable is familiarity. This preference for familiarity is, of course, one of the key blockers to diversity at senior levels. Now, establishing networks is an interesting one. And I often suspect, if I'm honest, that this is done in organisations simply so that they can say they're doing something. But in fact, some research I was involved in a while ago suggests that those formal employee network groups actually increase levels of turnover from underrepresented employees rather than supporting their development, exactly the opposite of what you want to achieve. Don't get me wrong, I think networks in organisations are critical, but it's the informal ones that are the real game changers. There are ways and means of setting up and managing formal networks to make sure that they're a cause for good and not bad, but you have to be mindful about it. So what does work? Let's take a look at three key areas. Firstly, effective mentoring is consistently linked to higher levels of promotion. As it happens, men especially benefit from mentoring in terms of promotion, but the uplift in promotion rates for women as well makes it a serious activity for us to explore. There are a few things to watch out for. So, for example, the seniority of the mentors and the support provided by the mentors. Minority employees tend to have access to fewer and less influential mentors. Matching the seniority of mentors provided to white and BAME employees, as well as to men and women, therefore, is key. Establishing mentoring relationships cross-functionally is also helpful, and it tends to lead to better outcomes for the mentee. Second area to flag is sponsorship. Often, in many respects, it's more important than mentoring. And it's described as the missing link in terms of getting more diversity into senior levels. Unfortunately, it is frequently misunderstood, and sponsorship programs are often simply mentoring programs with a different title. So you have to be really clear about the objective and what you want these programs to achieve. When effectively set up and managed, sponsorship programs can be a real differentiator in getting underrepresented employees to the top and giving them access to some really high-profile, sexy pieces of work that will get them noticed. A few things to watch again for here is that we know that some of these opportunities offered through sponsorship programs tend to be higher profile for men, with more access to senior people, and also have higher budgets associated with them. We also know from our live unconscious bias reviews that underrepresented employees have significantly fewer sponsors representing them in key meetings such as appraisal moderation meetings or promotion panels, and that obviously has a huge impact on the decisions made in those sessions. The third area that I wanted to mention, because of the sheer impact it has on increasing diversity at senior levels, is positive action programs. Done well, these have a huge impact on diversity at senior levels, and there's a video available on our Perncondola YouTube channel dedicated purely to this critical area. So do take a look if you're interested in the findings around the impact of these programs and how to structure them properly, or feel free to give me a call. Indeed, if you're interested in finding out more about any aspect of increasing diversity at senior levels, give me a call or drop me an email using the link below.